Johnathan Majors is one of my favorite actors over the last couple of years. For one, he's an amazing actor. He has this amazing on-screen presence that he can do through his face, but also his physicality. He's also been purposely transgressive against norms and constraints on black masculinity, to his detriment at times. Him simply daring to wear pink, something that niggas been doing since like the mid-2000s and earlier, got him called all kinds of gay and effeminate and whatever from dudes who would be scared to look him in the eye if they saw him on the street. He's also been the target of jokes because he's not the traditional ultra handsome black male actor, but a guy whose looks are more akin to like one of your homies that drives trucks for a living versus a Hollywood megastar. Despite all of this, he was experiencing a glow up wave after starring in both Marvel's Ant-Man and Creed 3, and also an Oscar buzzworthy movie about weightlifting that's supposed to drop in December. That's a lot of W's for one man in 1 year. So it broke my and a lot of people's hearts when early this year he was arrested and charged with battery after an alleged domestic dispute with his now ex-girlfriend. Lizzo's one of my favorite singers over the past few years. I was a fan way back when the song Juice was making its rounds around streaming circles in 2019. Since then, Lizzo has emerged as one of the biggest pop stars in the world, but also a bastion of transgressive positivity. Lizzo is a fat black woman, and she has been constantly attacked from pretty much all sides of the equation for not being ashamed of that fact.
So Lizzo, the rotund musical star. So I'm allowed to make fun of her weight. And the reason I'm allowed to make fun of her weight is because she has decided that quote unquote fat is beautiful, right? She is the one who made an issue of her body. I did not make an issue of her body.
This has happened from right-wing pundits, black men, and even black women. She's been called a mammy, a spirit animal, pretty much everything you can think of. And despite all of this, she's remained at the top of her game and remained unassailable to her detractors while still being successful. So it again broke my and many people's hearts when Lizzo was named in a lawsuit last week for promoting a hostile workplace environment for her backup dancers and forcing them to simulate sex acts on strippers and fat shaming them. It's not a good look for either fan base right now. So what does this have to do with believing victims? To make sense of that, let's unpack why the alleged bad behavior from these two celebrities that I don't actually know breaks my heart. This is because these two folks are rich and famous celebrities, and I have a one-sided parasocial relationship to them, much like some of you watching have to me. And that means that I'm invested in their well-being and success, and happy when I see them prosper and saddened when I see them fail. That's the unreality of celebrity and entertainment and art at work. But what this also really means is that these two folks have power. Not only do they have hundreds of thousands of fans rooting for them and automatically rooting against their alleged victims, but they also have the means and material resources to advocate for themselves in ways their victims cannot. Majors' lawyer first released a text message that sounded like the textbook statement a battered woman would state. It was so bad that it made me think he was in fact guilty. But since then, Majors has had numerous positive stories written about him and his case. Many of these stories are then embellished once they hit social media, and it creates a false narrative of what is really happening. I've heard on many occasions that his case is about to be dropped, but every time I go back and actually read the news about his case, there's no indication that that is the case. It's only today, when I decided to make this video, that I finally see something that clearly and unequivocally says that maybe the case is in jeopardy. I have pretty much only heard evidence in support of Johnathan Majors, and that feeds my desire to believe and want him to not be guilty. But we need to remain skeptical of this because his accuser is not a famous actor with a PR team and millions of dollars. The same thing goes for Lizzo and her accusers. As much as I would hate that this would be true about Lizzo, the fact is that she has the money and power in this equation. Money and power that she used to hire the same lawyer that has defended Chris Brown and Bill Cosby in the past. That also doesn't fill me with a lot of hope for her innocence. And you can expect similar tactics as Majors for Lizzo going forward, as is often the case when celebrities have to fight for their image in the press. I'm already seeing people defend Lizzo's alleged behavior, saying that the women in question, if they were abused, it's their own fault because nobody was technically forcing them to do the things that they were coerced into doing.
But Charlamagne, you said the word force. These are grown women.
Right.
Mm-hmm. They made a choice.
But when it's a power dynamic, what he said.
Though.
But it's still not force. She still has a mind of her own as a grown woman.
And no is a complete statement. No, girl,
and
no.
who eat bananas?
There's so many critiques to be made about these situations, but there's two key takeaways that I want to focus on going forward. One, we believe victims because in these type of situations, the victims are almost always disempowered. A lot of people think that believing victims just means that you just automatically believe that the accused person is guilty and we're supposed to throw them in jail and they never get their say in court and yada, yada, yada. That is not what that concept is really about. We believe victims because in these types of situations, the victims are almost always disempowered. They are seeking justice in situations where everything is stacked against them and stacked against them actually receiving justice. Believing victims simply means that we will do our best to support and amplify the victim's voice so that it doesn't get drowned out by celebrities or high-powered lawyers or fans that are positioned against them. I would rather come up here months and years from now and make a video apologizing to Johnathan Majors and Lizzo than to have abusers not be held accountable, or more importantly, have victims of abusers not be able to get justice and support for what they've been through. That is the risk proposition here. And the reality is you're only as canceled as your next hit, and if Johnathan Majors and Lizzo are actually both innocent, then a few hits later, because these are two hyper-talented people, this will barely be a story. But if they are guilty and there's no reckoning with what they've done and what the victims are going through, that's a much bigger problem. That said, here's the other hard part. Both Lizzo and Majors are black in America, and thus their success and existence is really already transgressive and a strike against them. Society will always seek to harm and marginalize black people whenever the opportunity presents itself, and we have to keep that in mind as we are suspicious and critical of them. And I say this to myself as well because it's easy to forget that sometimes. Lizzo is a big black woman who is already a constant target of gross attacks in the media, and you know they are licking their chops at the possibility of finally having a valid reason to attack her. Majors is a large black man and his victim is reportedly a white woman. Black men never have been treated well in our criminal justice system, but the added taboo of his alleged victim being a white woman adds a ton of baggage to the situation. There is a persistent desire in the media to depict black men as violent sexual beasts who are unsafe to have around white women. This narrative is a hallmark of racist terrorism throughout America's history, from Emmett Till to Rosewood to Greenwood and Tulsa. So it's likely not going to be pretty if the tide turns on him, and some people will never forgive him for it even if he's innocent. It's not going to be easy, but we're going to have to be able to do two things at once. We're going to have to acknowledge that these folks have vast power imbalances over their alleged victims and maybe are guilty of their alleged crime, but it doesn't mean you can fall into classic racist and sexist tropes against them. There's no place for that, and I need everyone, myself included, to elevate their critical faculties in this moment. That said, I want to end by again talking about victims. Not a ton is known about the alleged victims in this situation, and that is typical. As I said, most victims don't have a ton of power to advocate for themselves, so we must make them our focus of support. Let me be clear. The criminal justice system is trash, fuck the police and the courts, and I don't expect justice to really be served in any capacity regardless of the outcome. But we do need to try to focus less on punishing the alleged abusers and fighting on social media, and more on restoring and supporting the victims of abuse and violence. In so many cases, we are so invested in punishing people who transgress that we don't think about what a victim needs to get back on their feet, and how so many victims never even seek justice because the proposition of seeking justice is more dangerous than the proposition of enduring abuse. Check out Alisanvia's video on crossover feminism for more discussion on that. So take that energy that you have on your parasocial need for your celebrity phase to thrive and put it towards the people who actually need that attention. A few weeks ago, a young black woman in Alabama allegedly went missing, and for the first time in my 41 years of life in this country, it felt like the whole country stood up to support and look for this missing black woman. And lo and behold, the one time the country gets behind a black woman missing, we find out that she faked it the whole time. It's a disappointing and embarrassing outcome, although that does sound weird because it's good that she wasn't kidnapped. The whole situation's fucked up, but it need not change the fact and the reality that we understand that we need to repeat that same energy every time there's a victim of abuse, a missing child, or a missing black woman, where it doesn't get that type of attention that she did. For the very, very few women who do lie about abuse or kidnapping or whatever on some level, there are hundreds and thousands more who never report their abuse, never get justice, never get found, or never even get looked for. Majors and Lizzo are the big figures in this story, but we need to adjust our focus toward those who need it the most, especially those who are not talking about on Twitter. That's all I got. I'm gonna try to do more stuff like this because I've been having hot takes. Like, y'all know I'm full of hot takes, but I don't have time to put them out there. Everything can't be a hour and a half long video essay. So please subscribe and keep up with the channel. And I'll try to make more short commentary type joints like this going forward. That's all I got for y'all today. Peace.